afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'd like to first thank my stepdaughter Megan for helping me put this PowerPoint presentation together. Also helping me nowadays running the nursery, allowing me a little bit more time off. I'm blessed to have a great team at Buds Blooms Nursery, and that's what's made us who we are today. I had a few of the growers here yesterday, and I have one here today. And one that wasn't able to make the program, but between the four of those folks, they cumulatively have 112 years of experience at Buds Blooms Nursery for an average of 28 years per person. We also have one H2A worker that I believe has 22 years of experience. I'd also like to say a thank you to my wife, Tina, for all her support and for especially encouraging me to add a bunch of new line of plants in the nursery in the last 10 years. When we first started, we were pretty much ericaceous plants only. And in the last 10 years, we're probably a third of the nursery now is branded product. It's been a huge success. So let's get on with the process of starting Buds Blooms Nursery and the progress and problems over the last 40 years. This thing an on and off.
Oh, I'm sorry, that is not bad. Spotlight.
Okay. I want 2 minutes put on. Growing a Nursery from Scratch was the title I was given by, I don't know, Fred Davis or who came up with that. Fred was the one that asked me to do this talk. The first thing that you got to do, or at least I did, was trying to figure out what I was going to grow. That determines where you're going to locate your nursery and so forth and so on. And there's a lot of choices out there. Now you could be like ACOX and you grow everything, and you have all different sizes. And they had a gorgeous nursery we were at yesterday. But I was looking for a niche market, and that's where that was the direction I went. You can go for bedding plants, perennials, trees, still growing, pot and pot. There's a lot of choices out there. After you figure that out, you got to determine what kind of size pots you're going to grow in, or if it's field grown, what do you want to do with it? Because you need to know all that in order to figure out what kind of land mass you're going to need to purchase to begin with. Next thing I did was figure out what kind of customer base I wanted. You want to sell to a retailer, big boxes, landscapes, or to a re-wholesale yard. We have always, from day one, wanted to sell to the retailers. I don't have time to go into everything, but I can tell you pros and cons, question and answer, anything else, any of these topics that I don't have time to talk about because I'm limited in my time. So after you figure out all that, you can start thinking, well, I need to get some money. Who am I going to get money from? How am I going to get my loan? And how much do you need? If you're a field grower, you're going to need a whole lot more money, a whole lot more land. I knew from initially what I wanted to grow was rhododendrons and some accompanying plants. So that was my goal for that. And then as far as money goes, I ended up borrowing $150,000. There's 3 ways you can get money. Just traditional banks. You can go to agro business or any of the farm credit union type places, and they are much easier to deal with, or you can go to using investors. This was 1983. Those computers didn't exist in my office in 1983 when I started. Those phones were still around, although we started getting push buttons. The typewriter you see in the lower left corner, that existed. That was used in my office. It wasn't until 1986, maybe even 87 before we had computers. And fax machine came in just after that. And that was not uncommon or unusual. Average business didn't get computers until the mid-80s. So I was a little bit ahead of the curve on computers. And the disadvantage was, how in the world do you find out the information of where you want to go, where you want to be to start a nursery? And I couldn't pick anywhere in the country. I knew I had rhododendrons. But so I settled in on three or four states that I was looking at. Also, another quick fact, mortgage rate, 30-year, 13.2% in 1983. We think today interest rates are high. No cell phones, no internet, obviously. 3 ways to contact your customers: in person, phone, or snail mail. So I picked up the handy dandy 6-foot abstract of the United States. I'm sure everyone looked at that here, haven't they? It's still published today, and it is a real big book. So I use that to try to help determine growth potential of different areas that I was looking at. And after a lot of studying and researching, I decided on the Triad area, eliminated various states. And why did I look at the Triad? Well, first of all, some of the things I was looking for was good growth rates in the area. In that time, Greensboro area was number 2 in the state behind Charlotte. Of course, Raleigh's since exceeded that. They have great shipping corridors to major metropolitan areas. Greensboro's 300 miles from good old Knoxville, 300 miles to Atlanta, 300 miles to DC. And in 1983, I don't know what it is today, but in 1983, 40% of the population in the United States lived within 500 miles. I knew I wasn't going to ship to any of those states to begin with, but I hoped I would in the future. Today we're shipping to 17 of them. The types of plants that we were going to grow is ericaceous, rhododendrons, mountain laurels, pieris, azaleas. So climate also factored into where I was going, and Greensboro was a good choice for that. It's a little bit further east and a little warmer than some of the other places. However, I get one more flush of growth because of that. I wanted road frontage so that I have exposure, also increase in value of property over time. I was looking for water, so I needed to have ponds, creeks, streams, or wells. So as we move forward, we finally got the property. Bought 20 acres. Well, it's 24 acres. I had an option on another 4. I ended up buying 30 more at a later time. I ended up with 60 acres now. This is the property I bought, and this is the picture in November. This picture is from November of 1983, and it was soybeans on there. So I get to the property, I'm ready to start grading. I've been talking to grading contractors after being in Greensboro for 6 months looking for the property, and come to find out all these beans are on there, and the guy that sold the property didn't own the beans. It's another farmer down the road did, and guess what? You can't do anything on the property until the beans are gone. And he said it's too wet to harvest them. Well, the fella ended up turning out, he's a great guy. Most of the people in North Carolina know who know his first cousin. This guy was Ken Troxler, and his first cousin is Steve Troxler. They both live just, actually his property, Ken Troxler's property butts mine, and Steve's just a couple miles down the road. Great people. Anyway, so now we've got the property, and so it's time to go ahead and have fun and start grading, and see how wet and muddy it is. After that, it's time to go to irrigation. We did everything ourselves because we didn't have a lot of money to waste, so I did use the help, and I would highly recommend having an irrigation contractor help lay out your pipe, or not lay it out, but do your piping sizing, your irrigation pumps, and so forth. But we installed all of our own irrigation. We installed and built all of our buildings, metal buildings, wood, whatever it was, framed up pump houses, and so forth and so on. This was, you can see the graded off area is kind of the whole gravelled, and you see a steel building there and a couple prop houses. this is a few years in. The first year, we only had 3 of those beds, and they weren't even all the way up to the highway. Irrigation. Okay, everyone uses impact sprinklers. Or spinners and waters, and then at least one person in the country uses these, and that's me. You know, they're not your normal head. This is the head I grew up with when, shrub head that I grew up with when I was a kid in Florida, South Florida. Everyone used this sprinkler. I was impressed by it, and I decided I was gonna try it. But after a number of years, I went the other way and said, you know, I can save myself a little bit of time and money because I'll still put my own irrigation in. There's more pipes here because they're closer together, spacing and everything else. And only got 15-foot throw, and you got, you know, double that in an impact. So I went that way. Well, that was a mistake. I've now started switching everything back to these because they water. And I save 40 to 60% of my cycle time by using these sprinklers. I can do a cool down in 2 minutes and cool the temperature 20 degrees on rhododendron. We started off, typically can't afford anything more than the basics, so we had manual valves. Someone was going around changing all the time, changing, turning up and closing and everything else. Finally got an irrigation contractor in there, afford somebody to come in and help us. He put in electric valves, we put in some electric time clocks. There was the old ones to the right, that was the electromechanical, which is a lot better than all these new fangled ones that a lightning nearby just wipes them out. Ponds and irrigation obviously is the most critical component of the nursery. This is our original pond that was on the property. We soon found out that, you know, probably wasn't quite enough water. It was only about 5 feet deep, the deepest. So we started building another pond. And that's the beginning of the process, that's the end result. We also have we built three additional ponds since we've been there. We built 3 additional 4-bays, or silt ponds. I always called them silt ponds. Well, I was schooled on that recently when we had the Department of Agriculture out there. And everybody if you've not used the Department of Agriculture for this purpose, for building a pond or silt pond, definitely use them. They'll even pay you to do half your work or more sometimes. I currently have a 70% contract on digging silt out of one of our ponds. Every state in the country gets federal money to do this. Talk to your soil and water conservation people because they will help you do this and they'll pay part of it for you. And they're the ones that told me it's no longer a silt pond, you gotta call them 4-bay, and the contract has 4-bay in it. You can look up the definition, which I had to do because I just never heard of it. It's just basically a body of water in front of another body of water. Today, the nursery layout was really important to us, really into efficiency. Our roadways are about average 14 feet wide. The bed length started out a little narrow, or width, you could say, well, not length, it's width. They're about 72 feet, 75 feet. That's kind of short. A lot of people have 100 foot, 200, 300. I worked at a nursery that had those really big houses. I felt it was very inefficient, a lot of walking. Your guys are having to walk a long distance when you're potting up, you know, they're walking out there. When they're pulling orders, they're walking and walking. And so we just felt like it's gonna take up a little more bed space, a little bit more land by extra roads, but we're saving money on the labor side. Because we have erication plants that are very sensitive to phytophthora, every bit of the nursery is gravel. We own probably a couple gravel pits somewhere. We cover that gravel now with ground fault just to help keep weeds down and a little bit less spraying of herbicides. These are the first 3 beds at the nursery right here. You can see they didn't even go to the end of the road that we started with. We bought in liners from LA, that's Lower Alabama. We bought liners in, we bought quarts in, and we bought 1 gallon. We used the 1 gallon stock that was shifted to 3s as our cutting material for the first year. The quarts, we potted those to 2 gallons, and then the smaller 2 or 3 inch liners went to 1 gallon. We did all that, so we wanted to get plants as quick as we could. 2 gallon plants were ready. That we planted them in In the spring of '84, we had plants to sell in the fall. We sold some of those quartz in the spring when we bought those liners. I bought quartz. I literally put them in a pickup truck and pedaled them to garden centers that were in town. Those were my first sales I ever had. Today here you can see, in this picture, we don't have shade structures anymore. You'll see that why in a minute. You'll see different color plastics. You see white, you see some clear, you see some shade cloth stretched between them. We use the houses that need to be, blocks that need to be shaded, they'll go the entire length of shade cloth stretched across. Now we have 375 greenhouses, and we have no shade structures. Opacity of plastics, just really quick on this. I really found this interesting. Just started using different opacities of white over winter film. So there's a clear on the left, and I'm not sure what that is on the right, most likely because the azalea's under at 70%. But there's a lot of products we're using 35%, 55% on. And it's a game changer when you're trying to get something to grow, but you still want to have white. With the side effect we found of it that was really nice is that when we have our big snows, that 35 and 55% opacity co-poly does not have as much snow on it and ice on it built up. And it's because it's getting extra heat in that house, and that heat's radiating back out. Just like clear is the same way. So we've got to wait from 70 unless we have to, because there's less snow and less to knock off, and it's a job when we get a big snow. Time to go plant. First, we couldn't afford a potting machine or anything like that. We just took a tractor and filled up pots. Went out there and plugged the plants in the pots, like a lot of people do. Some people still do that way today. Then I got real innovative and built this little trailer with a little potting thing around it, and we were in business for a couple of years. Today we use a Java machine. It's our second Java, and it's about time to get a third.
Yeah.
But it's great. It's one that fills the pot. It drills the hole, whatever size hole you want. Everything goes interchangeable very quickly. We do with 10 people. That includes the loader, operator, mixing soil, and people putting pots in the field. 10 people, 8,003 gallons in a day. Load them up, water them in, and on the way they go. Now we're into propagation. We got those cuttings, it's time to propagate. So we started propagating azaleas. That's actually our summer snow gardenia, more current picture, I think, on the right. We started propagating azaleas right out of the gate. That was the first plants that we were propagating. We do it a little different than a lot of people. We do use 2 cuttings in some size pots, not all. We also use 3 cuttings when we're doing crepe myrtles, but we like larger size liners we can get. When we're buying liners in, we buy the largest pot size we can. And we go direct to whatever size pot we're gonna finish in. So if we're gonna go to a 3-gallon, we're taking a liner, and that bigger size right there does not go to a 3-gallon. That's a 4-inch liner. It's going to a 2-gallon. I have that 2-gallon ready in 4 months, 5 months, it's ready to sell. And I take that little liner and it goes directly to a 3-gallon, and that plant is rooted out and ready to go in 12 to at max 14 months. And so I don't like shifting from 1 to 3. Extra touching the plant is not efficient. It is taking a little more space up, but doing the 1 to 3 on the back end takes up more space, so I think it's a wash in the end. It's just rhododendrons. We do cut rhododendrons on one side or both sides, the wounding. This is one of our prop houses now, our gutter connected, newer one. That was my son probably about 30 years ago. For bottom heat, we have a biotherm system with a Raypack boiler that's used for rhododendrons. It's a must. We dabbled in tissue culture. Early on, I ran into a guy that was doing tissue culture in his garage, and he asked if he'd be interested. So I said sure, and so we kind of worked out a deal. And we started getting a bunch of tissue culture plants in. They're they're all rhododendrons, and you can see how small they are, and then they're using like tweezers to plant in these 288 trays, and that plastic would go over top of them. They go into a heat, like a prop house with extra high humidity. We're doing okay with it, but the variability from year to year, from crop to crop, was too much, and then some varieties he was having a really hard time with the varieties I needed. Ooh, got me rolling. 3 pot. This is direct stick into a 1 gallon for all of our crepe myrtles. That goes right to a 3. A couple months later, this is our first truck. This is the trucks today. 3 ways to ship plants: rack them, stack them, or shelve them. We do the shelving method. We think it's better because it just gets the plants there best. Actually, stacking them probably the most efficient. Disasters, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. When you start a nursery, you're going to have it. There's a tree on top. This was interesting. I had supposed to be a light snow, and it wasn't going to be a light. It ended up not being a light snow. We saw it coming in heavy, and I literally called somebody with a helicopter and see if they could knock the snow off with a helicopter. We were pretty desperate. And we had problems one other time with the structure breaking. So this guy came in every which way trying, and this is wet, still wet snow, couldn't get anything done. He moved on, and we actually had people go through with knives and cut right down where the aisle is here, cut right on the aisle to get most of the snow, get the load off the wood. So I lost all the shade, but I kept my structure. We've since tried crazy things. This is sodium chloride. It's basically what the road people use. They put it into a slurry. We've tried it, it actually works, but we can't get it to stick on a house. So I would like to challenge all our academia people, get somebody doing research on this. This could be a money-making solution for people. If you could get this stuff to stick on your greenhouse, you will have way less snow and ice on them. It would be a game changer. There's some snow damage. The worst storm was 2020, January 25th. We lost 100 greenhouses. That was a gutter-connected house. We lost every one of them. There's some flood damage from hurricanes or extreme thunderstorms. Busted pipes. It's all good stuff. When you get in nurse business, have fun. Marketing. Back then, the only way to market was literally go to someone's thing or send them a flyer in the mail. There was no email when we started, but nowadays, we're at trade shows, we're on Instagram and Facebook and all that stuff. I don't have any of it. I don't know how to work any of it, but other people unfortunately do. We created our own brand, have tags with our logo on it, a tagline, bloom after bloom, year after year. Initially, we came out with a blooming journal. We did it for years. We did a lot of ads back in the day. Neither one of those are actually, we're still doing it. It takes a lot of time on the blooming journal. I didn't feel like the ads were getting us anything. With today's market, you can market things yourself. Catalog, this was the initial catalog. First catalog I published in 1985. As you can see on some of that plants we do not grow anymore, but we've added a ton more that we do grow. But initially that was some of the first things.
Are you faxing that out? Faxing that out?
Yeah. Fax machine wasn't available yet for me, and I didn't have it then. That's the nursery in the late 90s. To your right is a new section that came on the next picture. I only got like one more slide, sorry I'm running behind. It's hard to tell, but if you look down here at the very bottom, which had a pointer, you can see where the road comes into the nursery off the highway. And everything to the right. So almost half the nursery is newer from the 1990 picture. And that's obviously 2013, it's not the most latest, but the best I have. And that's my great team of people I work with, and thank you so much for your time.